Welcome to Wrestling Travels Lockdown Sessions, the UK edition. And my name is Danny, and today I'm joined by Alexxis Falcon. Alexxis, how are you doing today?
I'm good, are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you very much, considering what's going on outside. It's always nice to, especially with the weather changing as well, it's nice to be indoors now.
I can't even go outside even if I wanted to, so...
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, just to dive in with this lockdown session, we want to obviously get to know all about you and obviously what you've been up to in the last sort of few weeks. So we'll start with that. So obviously with lockdown starting way back early this year, what have you found yourself been getting up to the last few months?
I'm not going to lie, putting on a lot of weight. I started baking during lockdown, and I think that's really contributed. So I did a lot of baking. I bought a Nintendo Switch on a whim because it was like middle of lockdown, and I was like, I want Animal Crossing. I have started yoga. That's another weird one. I started doing yoga, and very recently, well, last week, I got back from Disneyland Paris after having so many trips cancelled. I just decided to book a last-minute trip while we're still allowed to go travelling, because I'm working from home at the minute, so it's not too bad with me having to quarantine. So, yeah, that's all I've really done. It's just got fat, baked, and watched YouTube videos.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of the... what the majority of the population have been doing, to be fair, in terms of that. But just going on to that, how have you found doing yoga? Is that have you found that helped?
So when lockdown first started, I was supposed to be shielding, which I was. To be fair, I didn't go out because I'm really badly asthmatic, and I've got anemia as well, so I have quite a weak immune system. So I had to be extra careful, and I had a real bad way with it, because I wasn't working at the time, because we wasn't working from home, so I was just off work. I wasn't even doing anything to kind of bring me back to some sort of normality. Wrestling was gone. My boyfriend James was still at work all the time, so I was literally by myself in the house all day. So it sent me out a little bit. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I was watching the yoga with Adrian, and instead of doing yoga for flexibility and stuff like that, she has got ones like that that's proper full-on yoga, but a lot of it is mindfulness and stuff like that. So it did actually help me out, to be fair, because I was in a little bit of a bad way when I couldn't leave the house.
Yeah, no, it's anything to obviously help during this time, and but yeah, no, that sounds great. And your trip to Disneyland Paris, how did you find that experience? Obviously with restrictions in place, but was it still as fun as it could have been? Or
do you know what? That was my first time going to Disneyland Paris. I've been to the one in Florida 8 times, I think now. I lost count how many times I've been there. But so I didn't really have an expectation of Disneyland Paris anyway. I don't know what it's like. Do you know what I mean? And I was never going to compare it, but it was genuinely so good. I was really worried, oh God, you can't even hug the characters. And I sound really stupid saying that, but I do hug the characters. But there's selfie spots, so they're stood 6 feet apart from you, but there's barely any queues to get to them. We walked on almost every single ride, and there's something so magical about how quiet the park is. The only really thing is that you have to wear a mask, but it didn't bother me at all. To say I'm asthmatic, I'm not one of, a lot of people with asthma are exempt from wearing masks, which I technically am, but they genuinely don't bother me. So I was pretty okay in that sense. But, it's honestly not that bad wearing a mask all the time. We must have wore it from 8 in the morning. We got back at 7:30 at night. So we wore it for nearly 12 hours, apart from when we were sat eating or drinking. So it's really not that bad. The magic's still there, and they play Welcome Home to Disneyland when you come in now, just because they've been closed for however long. So it's more magical. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think obviously, as you said there, with it being obviously with less people there, being able to get on everything sort of quickly.
Yeah, we literally walked on absolutely everything. We must have done Space Mountain 10 times while we was there, because it was literally you walked on, there was no one there. We were the only 2 people on the roller coaster. It was just so quiet, surreally quiet. It did pick up a bit towards the last day because I think it was more heading towards the weekend because we went the Monday to the Wednesday. But it was genuinely fine. Like, we're going back in November, fingers crossed. I don't know if that'll happen, which is why we booked this trip, because we were expecting November to be cancelled. But like, it was so worth it. Like, I was thinking, oh God, like, I'm not really going to want to go back in November because like coronavirus. But like, I felt the safest then, and I felt this entire pandemic. Like, so it's crazy.
No, that's great to hear that you've had a wonderful time there, of course. But during the lockdown, have you managed to watch a lot of wrestling at all?
So when we first went into lockdown, I didn't watch barely any wrestling at all. Like, I would only watch it, you know, like on your phone, like when you scroll through Twitter the next day and like the highlights are on there and stuff like that. And I barely watched any at all until WrestleMania, which I think was like maybe the third week of lockdown. So I'd gone like 3 weeks not watching it. Because I was just in a bad way that it wasn't there, and I was like, it's just annoying me seeing people wrestling and I can't. And it was also like nice to have that break, but like for my body to recover, but then at the same time, like the mental effects of like not seeing your friends all the time and not like being fit and active, like you don't actually realize how much of a toll it takes on you, I think. But then very recently, well, not very recently, towards the end of lockdown, and now that we're essentially out of lockdown, I've been watching it a lot more. So yeah, but just like mainly just looking through Twitter and catching up that way, because I can't be bothered staying awake that day because I'm working now. So I still have to go to bed early and wake up early, so it's not as fun for me anymore.
No, that's fair enough. But I mean, in terms of yourself watching wrestling, where did that all start for you when you were growing up there?
So my late granddad used to show me it when I was younger. I used to go around to his house on like a Sunday for Sunday tea, and he used to show me it then. And I just started watching it, but I was quite like a late person to watch wrestling, because when it was like cool, I didn't watch it, and then when it wasn't cool, I was the one watching it, and all my friends at school was like, if you still watch wrestling, nobody even watches that anymore. And I was like still secretly watching it and dressing up as Jeff Hardy for World Book Day, so even though he's not out of a book, and I got told off by my teachers.
Oh my word, what did they say to you to tell you off?
Well, you had to dress up as a character from a book, right? Like, so like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, do you know what I mean? Like, you could dress up as Charlie, right? But I dressed up as Jeff Hardy, and my teacher was like, what are you here as? And I was like, Jeff Hardy. And he was like, that's a wrestler, like not a book character. So my response was, it was like 2006 at the time, right? And I had an annual, you know, like you used to get an annual for Christmas every year, like a book. I was like, he's in my annual actually. And she was like, it doesn't count. But I thought it was such a good response, but apparently not.
No, what a shame. Maybe don't. But did you manage to stay wearing your Jeff Hardy all day, or did you manage to get?
Yeah, stayed at school all day in my Jeff Hardy outfit.
Real. Glad they didn't send you home or anything for that. So obviously, watching wrestling growing up, when was it that you wanted to actually get involved with wrestling? What made you think, I want to do this?
Pretty much straight away. Like, I remember it was at the time where like the girls was the divas, and they was having, like the bra and panties match and stuff like that. And I never used to watch the women. Like, I'll hold my hands up now, as much of a strong feminist I am, because it was all that kind of stuff. And I was like growing up and like quite young. I found it uncomfortable to watch. Do you know what I mean? Because like, it's a little bit PG, isn't it? Even though my gimmick now is definitely not PG, but hey her. So I used to get really uncomfortable watching it. So I used to only watch the lads, and I used to say to my mum, like, I'm going to be a wrestler. And my mum and dad, obviously, with what women's wrestling was at the time, like, they turned around to me and went, you're fucking not, like that. And I was like, I am, like, I'm going to do it. And my dad was like, over my dead body, are you going to be on telly, half naked, like, having to strip off like that? And I was like, that's not what wrestling is, though. That's not what wrestling is. Like, and he used to just say all the time, like, you're not doing that, you're not doing that. And I used to say, oh, no, but I want to be like Jeff Hardy, because he was my favourite. Obviously, everyone knows that. But I'm like, no, I want to be like Jeff Hardy, or I want to be like Edge or John Cena. Like, I was that kind of person. Yeah. And then luckily, women's wrestling took like that. Obviously, they had the women's revolution. Women's wrestling took a little bit more seriously, and I think they then warmed to the idea a couple of years later.
No, that's brilliant. And how long is it that you've been wrestling now?
So I started training in 2016, but it was quite on and off because I was a student at uni. So I would maybe be in Liverpool for like 3 months and then home, because like when you're a student at uni, you have really long breaks because you don't really get like half terms. So you just have like really long Easter or Christmas or summer breaks instead of like 6 weeks. You'd maybe get 12. So I'd be home for like 3 months at a time. Do you know what I mean? And so then it was hard for me to train there because I didn't actually know there was a training school in Hull at the time, until my second year of uni that I figured that out. And by then I had a car, so I was driving up and down to Liverpool every weekend. So do you know what I mean? So started training properly like towards the end of 2016.
Brilliant. No, that's fantastic. Going back to 2 weeks ago when you made your in-ring return at FutureShockWrestling, can you tell me how that moment felt when you came through the curtain, heading back into the ring, your first match back? What was that feeling like?
So like before the actual match, I've never had nerves like that. Like genuinely, like even when I made my debut, even when I first went to training, even when I first had like my first title match or anything like that, or for my first like big massive company, like I've never had nerves like I had then. Like I honestly, like I looked at Sam before I went out. I was like, I can't do this, and he was like, you can. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm going to wrestle. Like I was literally like having such a panic attack, and it was probably a multitude of things. Like it was probably the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic and all eyes are on us to mess up. The fact that I've not done a show in God knows how long, knowing I had not one, but obviously you'd have seen we had 2 matches to remember. Some people had more than that. And then it stressed me out as well because James was out on the match before me. And he came backstage dripping with sweat because he'd just cut a promo after his match. And then they started playing my music. And I was like, oh my God. So there's James just spraying himself with deodorant, thinking, oh, I've got plenty of time. Like literally, he's not even dressed, didn't even have his mask on or anything. And I'm like, James, my music's playing, like we need to go out now. And he was like, he thought I was joking. So that made me even worse because I was like, oh my God, I don't need you shouting at me because I'm not lying. Like my music's playing, we're going out now. And we was that long. I don't know if you noticed, like people started like going, like as if to be like, where the fucking hell is she? Because I was like, oh my God, like my music's literally past the drop now. Like I should have made my entrance 30 seconds ago. Like the moment's gone. And then actually coming out, it was just weird because like there was that stress of me not coming out on time because James wasn't ready. But then it was like surreal in the way like it was the first time I've looked at a ring like from an entrance in so long. Do you know what I mean? And obviously like I was wrestling Tonga, thank God. Because she knows me like the back of her hand. So like we're literally best friends. So thank God I was wrestling her because I think if it had been anyone else, I think I may have just like crumbled and been like, no, I'm not doing it. Like I literally can't do it. But she was just as nervous as I was, so it kind of helped.
Yeah, no, helping each other there. No, that's great. But there were 2 great matches on that card a couple of weeks ago. So you certainly delivered in that aspect there. But I mean, the morning after, how did you feel? After
Get out of
2
bed.
matches back to back.
Could not get out of bed. Literally, I couldn't. I texted Tonga and I was like, Tonga, I can't get out of bed. She was like, oh my God, I was just about to text you the same thing. Like, we literally couldn't move.
Wow.
And it took me like 3 days to get over it as well.
Jeez. Blimey. But all worth it in the end.
All worth it.
All worth it in the end. So starting in 2016 up until now, do you have any sort of favourite matches that you've had or any favourite opponents that you've had?
Yeah, so like I obviously love wrestling Tonga. Like she's one of my favourite people to wrestle. Lana Austin is another really good one to wrestle. Like she literally like lives wrestling. Like she just knows what she's doing. Like she takes good care of you while you're out there. I had one of my favourite matches where I felt like I pushed myself the most was actually an intergender match against Brady Phillips. at 4GW, because I think boys plan so differently to how women plan matches, and that was good to like have his perspective on stuff, and he made me do stuff that I was like, oh my god, I would never normally do that, and he was like, no, I've got faith in you, like you can do it. So he kind of made me believe I could do it even if I couldn't. Do you know what I mean? So that was really good. I also really enjoy wrestling Charlie Evans as well. She's absolutely brilliant. And Jade, I love Jade. I think when I first wrestled Jade, it was in like we was like coming across each other in a lot of like multi-man matches. So we'd only do like the tiniest little bit, or it'd be a rumble where we'd have like a 2-minute thing. Then we had a match at Wrestle Island, and I was so ill. Like literally, I was literally so ill. And we got told that we were main eventing, and I turned around to the promoter at the time, and I was like, Pete, honestly, like I'm literally at death's door. Like I'm not going to pull out a main event match. And in fairness, like I didn't. Like I watched that match back and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for Jade. Because I'm just like literally, like I was so poorly. And she got poorly the next day from wrestling me. So I felt really bad. And then when we wrestled again at TNT, I was really, really glad because it was such a good match. And I was thinking, oh God, like what if we've just not got that like in ring chemistry? Like what if it wasn't because I was ill? What if we've just not, because some people you just don't work well against, you know what I mean? Like some people do not click in the ring. And that was what I was really concerned about. I was like, oh my God, what if it's just that? Like what if we just don't click? And then on our match at TNT, like it was so good. Like everybody said it was the match of the night. We both really enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, child, thank God. I do love working Jade as well, and she put up with me being so ill in the first time we had a singles match together, so credit where credit's deserved.
Brilliant. No, that's fantastic. And is there anybody that you've got your eye on who you'd like to face in the future?
So I've always wanted to wrestle Lizzie in a singles. So obviously, I know TNT have announced that the show's not going ahead, but I do think they've announced now that they're doing like something kind of backstagey where it's going to get released out to fans to watch on demand.
Yeah, on Powered 4 TV, I believe. Yeah, with the
So I'm really looking forward to that. Like I've wanted to wrestle Lizzie for so long, like forever. I've wanted to wrestle Lizzie for.
Real. Well, you hopefully get that there in a few weeks' time when that is scheduled, of course. Obviously, we know that you're a big Disney fan. Now, I wanted to ask the question, if you could choose to be any Disney character in wrestling, who would you choose? Because I was sort of thinking that off the top of my head, you know, obviously putting like Cruella de Vil as a heel manager. You've got Buzz and Woody, I reckon, could storm a tag team division.
Oh, so you mean like if I could have any Disney character to be in wrestling, who would it be?
Yeah, who would you choose to be, and maybe why?
It's really difficult. Hang on. Elsa, okay. She'd be a boss baby face, wouldn't she? She'd just zap people with ice, like seriously, like that'd be boss. So yeah, like I think she's really like badass and like strong, fierce, independent woman. As much as I want to say Ariel, because I don't know if you can see behind me because my camera's really bad, but I have an Ariel shrine right here, and I also have red hair. I've dyed my hair red to be like, oh yeah, that matches your wrestling character, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally why I did it, and I didn't. I did it to look like Ariel, but so I would say Ariel, but I think she'd be shit in a wrestling match. Do you know what I mean? Like she'd just cry that she's not got any of her like little Prince Eric to save her, and I'd just be real annoyed. So I'd need like a fierce, independent woman, and I'd also have Ursula as a wrestling manager.
Okay, good choices indeed. Fantastic. We do have another series on our YouTube, Wrestling Travel YouTube, called Road Stories. I don't know if you're able to disclose any from the top of your head that you'd like to share. Was there any funny moments that you've had backstage or at any shows? Obviously within reason. If there is any that you can share.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few I probably can't say, but I fell over on my entrance once, and it was literally horrendous. Like I was wrestling Lana, so she'd not seen it because she was the heel, so she was out pandering to the crowd, like she was still like giving it the big uns, and this kid had spilled, like it was in like a hall, right? You know, like an old assembly hall where the floor's already slippy. That's why they used to make you wear sand shoes at school.
Kind of floor, yeah.
Someone had spilt Kirk on the floor, and I like literally walked in and just went thud, sprained my wrist. I'm not even joking. I sprained my wrist, right? And I was like, oh my God, like my wrist is really hurting. And I think the first spot in the match, like Lana didn't see me fall over. So we're about to look up and I'm going, I fell over there. And she's like, what? Thinking I'm like calling a spot to her, going, what? Like that. I was like, I just fell over on my entrance. And she was going, what are you on about? Like that. It was dead funny. Like she had no clue what was going on. And like half the crowd didn't see it. So only this half of the crowd was like, oh my God, like, is she okay? Like she's literally just gone flat on her ass on the entrance.
Yeah.
And then and then I had to roll Lana up. Like that was the first thing. And that was how I knew like my wrist is really bad now, because it's like all the pressures on your wrist when you do like a schoolboy roll up.
Definitely.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. So I had to like sit and tell her, because I had like drop kicks, like front bump things kind of planned for the match. So I had to like tell her right at the start that that's not happening. You're not having to bump, hun. Like I'm just go to a corner for the comeback. Like I'm not doing anything that involves my wrist or a bump on my wrist. And in the end, like she knew what I was on about. Like it was luckily after I'd done the roll up, I was like, no, my wrist is hurting, like I really hurt my wrist. That she was okay about it, but I've still not seen the footage of me falling over, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'll have to dig that out somewhere to see that. But how was the wrist after? Did it last long, that injury?
Yeah, it's still twinges now. Like literally still now it twinges, yeah. So when I do like roll-ups now, I have to try and do them on my left. But like sometimes if you're doing a spot, like it'll call for you to do it on your right, and then they just always look really sloppy. Do you know what I mean? Right. So now I just literally avoid doing them if I can. And it's like the most simple, basic move, but I can't do them. Yeah. Well, I can, but with my left, and then it always messes the spot up because people go to the right, and it just, yeah.
No, that's fair. But well, hopefully that'll get better. So how long has it been like that for the wrist?
It was August last year.
August last year, okay.
I wore a wrist support for all my matches until January, because I remember tweeting out saying that was the first match I had without having to wear a wrist support.
Right, yeah, I think I remember that now, actually, yeah, from back then. Well, okay, well, hopefully it doesn't give you too much bother in the future, and it heals itself up there. But moving on this lockdown session, I've got a little game for you.
Oh, okay.
So it's the pick one game. So there's two options for you to pick your favourite.
I'm rubbish under pressure.
Well, it's all part of the lockdown sessions and getting to know you. I think there's 20 in total. Some are fairly straightforward, to be honest. Some are a bit random, but I'll start off with red or brown sauce.
Red.
Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Netflix.
The Rock or Stone Cold.
Stone Cold.
A city break or beach holiday.
City break.
Manchester or Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Cats or dogs.
Oh, cats. Sorry, Mum.
Oh. Summer or winter.
Winter.
Nice, yeah. Cola or Pepsi.
What are Pepsi?
Cola, Coca-Cola.
Coke.
Samsung or Apple.
Apple.
There's three options on this next one: Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Instagram.
Face or heel, which do you prefer?
Heel.
The Claymore or RKO?
RKO.
Do you prefer to save or spend?
Spend.
Mac or Windows?
Mac.
PlayStation or Xbox?
I don't really care for either. Xbox.
John Cena or Randy Orton?
John Cena.
Do you prefer New Year's Eve or Christmas Day?
Christmas Day? What even a question is that? If anybody says New Year's Eve, like, we're not friends.
I actually did a lockdown earlier yesterday with Tonga, and she did choose New Year's Eve. If you want to have a word with her there.
I can't believe my best mate would do me like this. Like, I swear to God, I'm going to text her in a minute and be like, girl, what is this?
She picked New Year's Eve for that. She said, apart from opening the presents and having the Christmas food, she said everything else was just boring on Christmas.
No, that's so wrong. New Year's Eve's so boring. It's so phony. It's full of people. How many times on New Year's Eve have you gone, I'm going to lose loads of weight this year? Like, we all sat and said 2020 is going to be our year, and look at us now. It's been a write-off. It's phony.
We'll go on to that part. But yeah, make sure you have a word about that one.
Well.
The next question, do you prefer working from home or going into work?
Going into work.
Amusement parks or water parks?
Amusement parks.
I already knew the answer to that one. And then finally, Trish or Lita?
Lita.
Fantastic. There we go. So that's all the pick one, get to know questions there.
They were quite easy, actually.
Yeah, they were fairly straightforward for you to get to know you, for everyone who will be watching this. But no, it has been a pleasure to have you on this afternoon. But moving forward, where can we find your socials and any merchandise from you?
So I've got a big cartel, which is just alexxisfalcon.bigcartel. Obviously I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Alexxis Falcon with 2 X's, because everybody only spells it with 1. I'm also on TikTok, Life of Alexxis, and also so is Tonga, because she told me that she promoted my TikTok yesterday, so I'm going to have to promote hers today, because hers is better than mine. She's better at TikTok than I am. I keep asking her for tips on TikTok, so I can't take all the credit.
Fantastic. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, and we can't wait to obviously see you in action, hopefully when things get a little bit better out there, so we can see you more in the ring moving forward. But no, thank you very much, and we'll hopefully speak to you very soon.
Thank you for having me.